Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to give you a full rundown on the new 2021 Specialized Rockhopper Sport 29. The Rockhopper has been a staple in the Specialized lineup since the mid-80s. Yeah, that's right, the mid-1980s, which is a testament to its timeless design and functionality. Now, in the 30 years since the Rockhopper first debuted, it's clearly come a long way since its initial design. Presently, the Specialized Rockhopper serves the entry to mid-level riders who want a solid, no-nonsense hardtail mountain bike to rip through their local trails. With 5 levels ranging in price from $500 up to $1,100 US, the Rockhopper is one of the best ways to enter the sport of mountain biking without breaking the bank. The one that I have here actually belongs to my wife, and it's her first real mountain bike. It's a Rockhopper Sport 29, which is just one level above the base model, and it comes in at a meager $600 US. This one here is a size small, and it's good for riders roughly between 5'2" and 5'5". And this is a Satin Forest Green color scheme. For reference, I'm 5'8", and while I've been riding this bike around a little bit for fun, I'm a little bit cramped on this size, so I would prefer a medium. Now, before I dive into the review, if you find this video helpful in any way, then hitting the subscribe button is the best way to let me know and to make sure that you don't miss out on other bike content like this. Okay, so starting with the basics, all the Rockhoppers in the lineup are hardtails, meaning that they have a front suspension fork, but no rear shock. Now also, each level comes with a variety of different wheel sizes denoted by the number after the model name. For instance, this is a Rockhopper Sport 29, so it has 29-inch diameter wheels. Now you can get every model in the lineup in a 27.5-inch wheel. Now the two lowest models, the base and the Sport here, even come in the nearly obsolete 26-inch wheel size from yesteryear. Now I think the idea here is to suit a vast range of rider sizes by offering the proper wheel size for a given frame. The frame is made from specialized premium A1 aluminum, which has been proven to be strong and lightweight over the years. It's fairly stiff, which is a good thing. But, of course, this comes at a price, as it can feel pretty harsh and chattery down the rough stuff. While the bike is definitely a proper mountain bike, it does leave clues as to its entry-level status all around. Now, for instance, there's a welded bracket behind the bottom bracket for a kickstand, which isn't ever really seen on a proper mountain bike. The drivetrain is a 2x9 trigger shift system for a total of 18 speeds. Now I will mention that 20 years ago, a low-end drivetrain usually meant clunky and imprecise friction shifting, but the modern bicycle drivetrain has come such a long way since then, and after I dialed in these derailleurs, they shift perfectly, crispy and precise. The 11/36 tooth Sunrace cassette offers a pretty wide range of gears when paired with the 22/36 tooth front chainrings, so climbing steep hills won't be a problem. Now, one of the reasons we chose to opt for the Sport model is that this is the first level that incorporates hydraulic disc brakes. Now, these are the Tektro M275 hydraulic brakes with 160mm rotors, and after the initial bedding process, they're pretty strong and modulate decently well. They do leave you wanting a bit more in terms of sheer braking power, but then again, at the $600 mark, it's hard to complain. Also, at a later time, if you feel like you want more braking power, they're easily upgradable. Now up front, this bike is equipped with the SR Suntour XCM29 suspension fork with 90 or 100mm of front suspension, depending on the size of the frame. Now if you're curious, SR Suntour is a components manufacturer, and they've been around for a really long time. They make solid entry to mid-level components, and they're widely spec'd on many different types of bikes. Now this fork here has 30mm stanchions, so it's not going to be as stiff as a higher level fork, and it also doesn't have adjustable rebound damping, but it does claim to be tuned to offer decent performance in most scenarios. The wheels are a house brand Specialized alloy rim with 25mm inner width and 32 spokes each. They're disc brake specific, which makes sense as this is a disc brake only frame and fork, and the rear uses the 135/9 quick release spacing standard, and the front uses the 100/9 spacing standard. Now what this means is that from an upgradability standpoint, you won't necessarily be able to upgrade to higher end wheels, as higher end wheels typically use a different hub spacing. The tires are Specialized's own ground control sport tires in a 2.3-inch width, and these ones here are not tubeless ready, and they're not tubeless rims. And the rims are also drilled for standard Schrader valves, which is a bit of a disappointment since the industry standard seems to be the Presta valve. This isn't a big deal though, because most bike pumps these days can handle both Schrader and Presta valves. The cranks are the stout alloy 2x cranks, and they mount to an old school squared taper 73mm bottom bracket, which again will serve most riders just fine, but, and cue the retro grouches here, the technology is just a bit outdated. Now one of the things I really like about the bike is the semi-internally routed cables. Now, it's clear to me that this is a design tactic used by Specialized to boost sales, but it totally worked on us. Now, modern bikes generally use internally routed cables, which means that the brake and shifter cables all run down the inside of the down tube, and they're not visible from the outside. They just plain look better. It's a cleaner aesthetic, and Specialized knows that they can distinguish their entry-level bike from others in the same space. Now, the reason I'm claiming that this is a tactic designed to boost sales is because it's only partially internally routed. If you take a closer look, the cables actually pop out of the bottom bracket in this kind of weird open down tube thing, which I've never actually seen before. The cables are actually externally routed from the seat tube back, where it's less noticeable, as they run underneath the chainstays. Still, it caught my eye as one of the cleanest looking mountain bikes at this price point when we were shopping. The last thing I'll mention is the seat post. You get a very run-of-the-mill 30.9mm alloy seat post secured by a quick release, which again is kind of a telltale sign of its entry-level status. Now, it would be really easy to install a hex bolt seat post clamp if you want to. Also, the frame has access holes in case you do want to eventually upgrade to a more modern dropper seat post in the future, which is a very nice touch. So how does it ride? Well, the slack head tube angle at 68.5 degrees and the relatively short chainstays at 440mm follow suit with modern cross-country and trail bike geometry. And for that reason, this bike handles beautifully when tackling moderate trails. Now, I'm out here on the Fullerton Loop in Southern California, and it's a mix of green and blue level trails, and this bike keeps up just fine. Now, obviously the suspension fork leaves something to be desired. Now, sure, there's a spring in there to absorb some of the chunky stuff, but with only a compression adjustment and no rebound damping adjustment, it's somewhat of a one-size-fits-all approach. Now, as far as braking, you can set these up for one-finger braking, but you will need to consider your braking strategy if you plan to really rip on this thing, as they aren't the strongest brakes. Now, the pedals are stock plastic pedals with decent grip, but if you're used to clipless pedals or higher-end platform pedals, then these are going to feel a little bit vague in terms of grip. If you find yourself slipping off the pedals when you're really pushing, then it's easy enough to upgrade the pedals in the future. Now, all in all, I'm pretty impressed by everything about this bike, especially given the low price tag. Now, my personal daily driver is a full suspension Santa Cruz High Tower, which cost me the equivalent of about 7 of these. And while I love my Santa Cruz, I'm really impressed with what Specialized has done in terms of offering a quality bike at a low entry point. There are a couple of concerns with upgradability if you plan to buy this bike and then incrementally upgrade the components over time. As I mentioned earlier, you will be limited by the wheel hub spacing, and you may not have all the drivetrain options available if you eventually want to upgrade or try, say, a 1x system. The frame is solid though, and with the internal routing for a dropper seat post, Specialized has clearly thought about upgradability, which is great. So who is the Rockhopper for? Well, I would say it's for a beginner mountain biker who is curious about the sport of mountain biking and wants to try it out without needing a bank loan. Now, at the same time, the higher end Rockhoppers could also be well suited for a seasoned rider looking to casually get back into the sport after a hiatus, or just as a spare hardtail to whip around their local trails. Now, in our case, this Rockhopper is for a mom who wants to enjoy riding trails with the family and who doesn't care too much about the nitty-gritty specs, but also wants something that looks great and is a couple of steps up from a department store bike. And because it suits such a wide range of riders, I definitely call this one a trail bike for the masses, which I guess is exactly how Specialized designed this bike. Now, if you're on a budget and you're looking to enter the sport of mountain biking, then it'd be really hard to beat the value that you get with the Rockhopper. Okay, so that's it for this review of the 2021 Specialized Rockhopper Sport 29. If you have any questions or want to share your experience with this bike, then please feel free to ask or comment down below. I'd be more than happy to engage in the conversation. Thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you next time.